Jaya Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Asto Saraswati Shimaravai Charanarinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada Ki Jaya Om Nityananda Pravista Om Vishnupada Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jaya Om Nityananda Pravista Om Vishnupada Shakshad Bhairagya Murti Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jaya Om Nityananda Pravista Om Vishnupada Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jaya Om Nityananda Pravista Om Vishnupada Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Shri Rup Shri Sanatan Bhakta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhaktadas Raghunath Sargoswami Prabhupada Ki Thanks to Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogo Bhagopinath Shamakunda Thakur Jai Govardhan Ki Bhai Pudavadi Dham Ki Rajabhumi Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Glory to the Hare Krishna Glory to the Hare Krishna Glory to the Hare Krishna Glory to Shri Shri Guru Rango Glory to Shri Guru Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya 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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagwatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7, Text 18. Janmadhya sad ime bhava Janmadhya sad ime bhava Janmadhya sad ime bhava Janmadhya sad ime bhava Vrishta dehasya natmana Vrishta dehasya natmana Vrishta dehasya natmana Vrishta dehasya natmana Alanam iva vrikshasya Alanam iva vrikshasya Alanam iva vrikshasya Alanam iva vrikshasya Bhaleneshvara murtina Bhaleneshvara murtina Bhaleneshvara murtina Bhaleneshvara murtina Janmadhya sad ime bhava Janmadhya sad ime bhava Vrishta dehasya natmana Vrishta dehasya natmana Alanam iva vrikshasya Alanam iva vrikshasya Bhaleneshvara murtina Bhaleneshvara murtina Janmadhya sad ime bhava Vrishta dehasya natmana Vrishta dehasya natmana Alanam iva vrikshasya Alanam iva vrikshasya Bhaleneshvara murtina Bhaleneshvara murtina Janmadhya sad ime bhava Janmadhya sad ime bhava Vrishta dehasya natmana Vrishta dehasya natmana Alanam iva vrikshasya Alanam iva vrikshasya Bhaleneshvara murtina Bhaleneshvara murtina Janmadhya sad ime bhava Janmadhya sad ime bhava Vrishta dehasya natmana Vrishta dehasya natmana Alanam iva vrikshasya Bhaleneshvara murtina Bhaleneshvara murtina Janmadhya sad ime bhava Janmadhya sad ime bhava Vrishta dehasya natmana Vrishta dehasya natmana Alanam iva vrikshasya Alanam iva vrikshasya Bhaleneshvara murtina Bhaleneshvara murtina Janmadhya sad ime bhava Vrishta dehasya natmana Alanam iva vrikshasya Alanam Kalene Swaramurtina. Janmadhyasavine Bhava Drishta Devasya Natmana Palananiva Vishasya Kalene Swaramurtina. Translation. Just as fruits and flowers from a tree in due course of time undergo 6 changes: birth, existence, growth, transformation, dwindling, and then death. The material body, which is obtained by the spirit soul under different circumstances, undergoes similar changes. However, there are no such changes to the spirit soul. Purport by Sri Pralhad. This is a very important verse in understanding the difference between the spirit soul and the material body. The soul is eternal, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 2:20. Let's chant together. Nijayate liyate bhaktarachin naya bhutva vitavana bhuya ajo nitya sasvatoyam purano nahanyate hanyamane shavire. For the soul there is never birth nor death, nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, undying and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. The spirit soul is eternal, being freed from waste and change, which takes place because of the material body. The example of a tree and its fruits and flowers is very simple and clear. A tree stands for many, many years, but with the seasonal changes, its fruits and flowers undergo 6 transformations. The foolish theory of modern chemists that life can be produced by chemical interactions cannot be accepted as true. The birth of a human being's material body takes place due to a mixture of the ovum and the semen. But the history of birth is that although the ovum and semen mix together after sex, there is not always pregnancy. Unless a soul enters the mixture, there is no possibility of pregnancy. But when the soul takes shelter of the mixture, the body takes birth, exists, grows, transforms, and dwindles, and ultimately it is vanquished. The fruits and flowers of a tree seasonally come and go, but the tree continues to stand. Similarly, the transmigrating body soul accepts various bodies which undergo 6 transformations, but the real soul remains permanently the same. Ajo nitya sasvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane sharire. The soul is eternal and ever-existing, but the bodies accepted by the soul are changing. There are 2 kinds of soul: the supreme soul, the personality of Godhead, and the individual soul, the living entity. The various bodily changes take place in the individual soul. Different millenniums of creation take place in the supreme soul. In this regard, Madhvacharya says, Sad Vikshara Saridasya Na Vishnus Tad Gatasya Cha Tad Ahinam Shariram Cha Yadvatam Mamatam Tyajet. Since the body is the external feature of the soul is not dependent on the body. Rather, the body is dependent on the soul. One who understands this truth should not be very much anxious about the maintenance of his body. There is no possibility of maintaining the body permanently or eternally. Antavanta ime deha nityasyokta saririna. This is the statement of the Bhagavad Gita 2:18. The material body is antavat, perishable, but the soul within the body is eternal. Nityashakta Sharirina. Lord Vishnu and the individual souls who are part and parcel of him are both eternal. Nitya Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. Lord Vishnu is the chief living being, whereas the individual living entities are parts of Lord Vishnu. All the various grades of bodies, from the gigantic universal body to the small body of an ant, are perishable, but the super soul and the soul, being equal in quality, both exist eternally. This is further explained in the next verse. Om Gyan Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sukham Bharoti Vachalam Mongum Nangayate Girim Yatkruha Kamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Shirupa Shri Sanatana Bhaktarvana Shri Jiva Gopal Bhakta Saraguna Shri Chaitanya Garo Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayamrupa Kadamhayam Nanati Swagadantikam Namo Mahavanandaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauradvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tattvagam Chanagaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Paramami Hari Priye Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Tasmi Adikanata Karuna Manasagira Krishna Gandhe Tavai Vasmi Yuvame Vagatir Mama Govinda Balavedadhe Partihe Kamaham Sada Tvariyayati Janatu Govindo Mamtvayasa Radhe Vrindavanadeshe Karunamritavahini Kripaya Nijapadaja Dasyam Mayam Pariyatam Tavai Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vidyaya Devi Tvam Dayamam Charanantikam Panchakalpa Taruyasya Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Bhavayeva Vaishnavayeva Namo Namaha. Pralhad Maharaj is speaking to his school friends. They've asked him, how is it that you are a Vaishnava, a devotee, although your parents, your father particularly, was such a great demon? And so Pralhad Maharaj is explaining to them, he's responded by explaining to them how he learned spiritual knowledge from his guru while he was still within his mother's womb. Prabhupada has spoken in his purport about how materialists, that is, those who have a material understanding of everything, they do not understand, they do not account for the divine or spirit. They think that life comes about simply through a combination of chemicals. That is the semen of the male and the ovum of the female. They think that this produces life. Prabhupada is saying that unless the soul enters into that conception, life will never arise. So there is a soul present in that conception. How does a particular soul come to a particular conception? It depends on the consciousness of the parents and the consciousness of the soul. They say, like attracts like. Well, it is not just about attracting. It is the law of karma. Based upon the karma, or the actions that we perform, we create certain modes of consciousness which further create actions which further reify states of consciousness, and like this there is an ongoing cycle. And so that consciousness, yam yam bhapismaram bhavam tyantakalayvaram, whatever state of being one is in at the time of death, Krishna says, that will take you to your next destination. That will take you to a particular set of parents engaged in the act of conception. What type of parents will you be given? Depends on your consciousness, depends on their consciousness. Arjuna asks Krishna, what happens to the unsuccessful yogi? And Krishna's response, Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yogo Bhrashta Vijayate. The unsuccessful yogi will appear, there are different options. Possibly in the home of one who is Suchi. Who is Suchi? Suchi hand, Muchi hand. What does Suchi mean? Suchi means pure, means clean. Who is clean? Who can be counted as Suchi? Well, we learn from the Padma Purana. Apavitra pavitro va sarva vastangato viva yasmare pundari kaksha sabahya bhyantara Suchi. You took the words out of my mouth. One who remembers Pundari Kaksha, the Lord with lotus eyes, they are Suchi. All inauspiciousness, all impurity goes far away. Sabahya bhyantara. And they become Suchi, they become pure. So Krishna is saying, Suchina Shrimatam Gehe. They can be born in a family that is Suchi, means those who are remembering Pundari Kaksha, those who are chanting the name of Vishnu, that means Vaishnavas. They can be born in the home of Vaishnavas, or at least Brahmanas, because Vaishnavas are more honorable than Brahmanas, even though they may be apparently as Muchi. Externally, they may be seen to be of a caste that engages in impure works, maybe the undertaker, maybe the cobbler, the shoemaker. But if they are remembering Vishnu, chanting the holy name of Vishnu, they are Suchi. Another Suchi are the Brahmanas. Once I was traveling with some devotees in Bharat, in India, doing some research. We went to meet one very highly respected Brahmana, very learned in the Veda. I went with Basu Ghosh Prabhu, the president of ISKCON Radha, disciple of Sri Pralhad, some other devotees, Vidvan Gauranga, disciple of Jataka Maharaj. And we asked some questions of this very learned, highly respected teacher of the Veda. We had interesting discussion, but that's another class. When we were there, Basu Ghosh Prabhu, he offered his full obeisances. And Vidvan Gauranga, he was a little uncomfortable. I think when we finished with him, he was clearly not a Vaishnava, but a very highly learned scholar of the Veda. Basu Ghosh offered his obeisances as we were leaving. And then when we left the room, Vidvan Gauranga said to him, how can you offer your obeisances to him? He's not a Vaishnava. He thinks himself to be equal to Vishnu. Basu Ghosh Prabhu said, he's a Brahmana. The Brahmana is respectable, whatever their position. And you can, even from this perspective, you can say that when a Brahmana gets married, they're given the Shalagram Shila to worship in their home. from the higher varnas. That is part of the, in a traditional marriage ceremony, that is part of the transaction. You receive Shalagram Shiva. That is your home, must be a place where Vishnu is worshipped. Even though you don't know you're a Vaishnava, you are worshipping Vishnu just as a member of this exalted civilization called Varnashrama. So, Suchi can be a Vaishnava, can be a Brahmana. Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yogo Grashta Vijar. Or, if not Suchinam, then Shrimatam. Shrimat means, it means the aristocracy. Could refer to the Kshatriyas, that are the landholders, the landowners, collecting tax, providing facility, protection to those that live on their lands, or to the Vaishyas, those that conduct business enterprise and also pay tax that contributes to the well-being of society. They are the Srimad, so they have facility. Krishna's response: the unsuccessful yogi can take birth in any of these families, that of the Vaishnava, of the Brahmana, the Kshatriya, or the Vaishya, where there is enough facility that you don't have to bother for basic maintenance of the body. The mind is a bit peaceful, and you can focus on continuing your spiritual endeavor. So, the soul is attracted to the conception of parents who are pious. That is the essential point here. Hence the perplexity on the part of Prahlad Maharaj's friends. You, a great saint, born into a family of demons. Your father is Hiranyakashipu, born into the family of Daitas, into a family of descendants of Diti. She was so envious. Envious of her co-wife, Aditi, the mother of the Devas, the mother of the gods. Prahlad is a descendant of Diti, the Daityas. He is one of them, and yet he is so elevated in his consciousness. What has happened? There has been an intervention. Prahlad Maharaj has heard from Devarshi Narada while still in the womb, and he's explaining to his friends what he's learned. Very importantly, he has learned that there is a difference between the self and the body. The materialistic education is all about the body, and there is no consideration given to the self. When Srila Prabhupada was lecturing at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, very famous lecture, he asked the audience, in this university, very famous university, highly ranked, respected institution of knowledge, there are so many departments teaching so many things. Where is the department that will teach me the difference between the
body and the soul?
The body and the soul. The self and the body. Is there one department here that will teach that? So, Prahlad Maharaj is in a school, similar type of school. He's learning from the Gurukul of Sanda and Amarka, both disciples of Shukracharya. Their concern is with Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. That is piety, economic development, sense gratification, well, less moksha. Dharma, Artha, and Kama. So Prahlad Maharaj is emphasizing to them this higher understanding. You must understand the spiritual dimension. The body is temporary. It has 6 transformations. Think of a tree. Nice example he's given. Think of a tree. It has many fruits and flowers. Seasonally, we see the flower buds appear, there's birth, there's growth, they bloom, and Let's see, the 6 changes here. Birth, existence, growth, transformation. We see and then they start to dwindle, and finally they die. Birth, growth. Sometimes we say, or Prabhupada would say, reproduction. The flowers, they don't really reproduce, but in a sense they do. There is the bees. They facilitate the reproduction of the plants by carrying the seeds, essentially, from one tree to the next, from one plant to the next, and that facilitates their continued reproduction, their pollination, their development of fruits, and so on. So birth, growth, reproduction, dwindling old age, and death. These are the 6 transformations only of the body. That's Prabhupada's point in his purport. Only of the body, because the soul is eternal. Quoted very beautifully. Nijayate mriyate vakadachin. So many other nice verses of the Gita which state that the soul, nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chainam hledayantyapo, na sasayati maruta. Nainam chindanti shastrani. It cannot be cut by any of the astras. Nainam dahati pavaka. It cannot be dried. It cannot be moistened by water. It cannot be dried by the wind. No one can destroy the imperishable soul. It cannot be burned by fire. So all these different elements that we have in nature, they cannot hurt the soul. Now these verses might sound interesting to us. Okay, you can't wet it, you can't dry it, you can't burn it. But in the context of the Kurukshetra war, there are these powerful Kshatriyas lined up. They have astras in their quivers. Not just the arrows in the quivers, but the astras are actually the mantras. They will use the arrow as a vehicle to carry a more powerful astra, such as the Vayu Astra. Right? So Arjuna will release his Vayu Astra. So yes, arrow, but it is mantra empowered with the Vayu Astra mantra. He invokes the power of the wind into that astra, and it creates a tornado or a cyclone on the battlefield. 50 years ago yesterday, Australia experienced one of its worst disasters ever. That was Cyclone Tracy, was it? Yeah, in Darwin. 50 years ago today, it wiped out most of the city. So that is the power of a Vayu Astra. Now, we have no control over the cyclones and the tornadoes. They come when nature dictates. But Arjuna and the other powerful warriors on the Kurukshetra battlefield, they have received these astras. And Arjuna can invoke a cyclone and aim it with his bow and release it in a targeted area on an opposing army. Similarly, he has a Varunastra. 10 years ago, yesterday, I'm doing history today, material history. Purana means history. These are the sacred histories. 10 years ago today, there was a tsunami that inundated so many countries in the Indian Ocean. Indonesia was the country worst affected. 14,000 people killed, something like that. 14,000 people in one country. People were also killed in Thailand, also in Sri Lanka, by this wave of water, Varuna, the lord of the ocean, the lord of water. The power of the ocean released upon these countries all at once. We were here in Sydney doing Harinam Sankirtan at that time, and then Indradyumna Maharaj collected up a team of devotees, international team. They went to Sri Lanka and they cooked up tons and tons of Kitri Prasadam and they distributed to people affected by that tsunami. Arjuna has in his repertoire, in his arsenal, that's the better term, he has in his arsenal a Varunastra. He can create, they're doing that battle in Kurukshetra, very far from the ocean. But he can invoke the power of Varuna and release essentially a tsunami on the armies. He has fire weapons, Agni Astras. Now, it's not so easy as it may sound. Well, he could have just devastated, he could have just wiped out the Kauravas all at once. One tsunami here, one cyclone there. On the opposing side, there are warriors that have similarly powerful weapons. Oh, you're going to release your Vayu Astra? Here, take my Mountain Astra. I will release an earth weapon that will stop your cyclone. You're going to release a firearm. Yeah, that's all we know. Modern warfare technology, they use firearms. Here we have wind arms and water arms and earth arms. You're going to release a fire weapon. Here, take my water weapon. I will nullify it. I will make your weapon worthless, powerless. And so this is the type of battle that these great Kshatriya Maharathis would engage in. Arjuna has received these divine weapons by combating, by serving his guru, Dronacharya, who happens to be on the opposing side. He's received these weapons also by combating or fighting on the behalf of the gods. Indra invited him for a period, you come and help us out. We have some issues that need to be addressed. We need a powerful Kshatriya. Indra is his father. We have some difficulties. We need a powerful Kshatriya like you to come and support us. So Arjuna, he went and he gave his best in support of the Devas, and they blessed him with so many powerful weapons. So divine weapons that he's received. But then Krishna tells him, Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, nainam pladyantyaapo, na society marta. Arjuna, you are hesitant to fight. In fact, you're not just hesitant, you have refused to fight. But your refusal, it is based on ignorance. Asochan anvasochastvam pragyavadans chavasase gatasunagata sunscha namu sochati pandita. Arjuna, you are speaking like a learned person, but you mourn for that which is not worthy of grief. For the soul can never be destroyed. Tam tata kripaya vistam. Very interesting language. Kripa. He uses this word kripa. The Vaishnava is kripa sindhu, an ocean of compassion and kindness. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhyevacha I offer my obeisances to you, dear Vaishnavas, who are oceans of compassion. Your compassion for the fallen conditioned souls is like an ocean. And yet, Arjuna, he is being chastised by Krishna. Tam tata kripaya vistam ashrupurna collectionam. Where has this petty weakness of heart come from? Anarya justam ashvargyam arkiti kartum Arjuna. It will lead to, where is this weakness of heart, this kripa, come from? It is not worthy of a person like you. It will not lead to better things, but to akirti. What is Radharani's mother's name? Kirtida. It means that she is very famous. And Krishna's mother? Yasoda. Synonyms. Same word, same name, in fact. Just different ways of saying it. Kirti means fame, but Krishna is telling Arjuna, your kripa, your what we would generally translate as compassion, it will lead to infamy. Arkirti. Akirti. It will lead to infamy. It is anarya. It is not befitting an Aryan, someone who knows the true value of life. Anarya justam ashvargyam arkiti. So, why? Because Krishna says your compassion is compassion for the body. You do not understand, none of your astras have any power against the soul. The soul cannot be destroyed by any weapon. It can't any of your wind or fire or water or any such material weapon. We must develop understanding of the soul. Each will meet their karma according to their previously performed actions. They have chosen to support Duryodhana, the evil usurper, perpetrator of injustice. They have chosen to support him, and justly, they will receive the consequences of that. Do not grieve for them, however. Do not grieve for their bodies. Krishna goes on to show something to Arjuna, very interesting. Arjuna asks to see, can you show me your opulence? Can you reveal to me some of your opulence? Because Krishna has told Arjuna, I explained these things so long ago to the sun god. He explained it to Manu, who explained it to Ikshvaku, and it's come down in a parampara. Arjuna says, Krishna, you explained this to people who lived millions of years ago? That's right. Don't think me to be a material person, your material consciousness. Lamenting for bodies, thinking that I am a material being. Janmakarma me divyam. You should know my appearance to be divya. If you know my appearance to be divya, you will not take birth again in material existence. So Arjuna says, Krishna, can you show me some of your opulence? Krishna begins to explain it to him. I am the strength of the strong, of secrets I am silence, of immobile things I am the mighty Himalayas, of bodies of water I am the, of aquatics I am the, of bowmen I am. That's a good one. Of rulers I am the king. So like this he explained, I am the best of all things. Then he says, well, what's the use of me telling you all of this? Let me show you. That'll be something. let me show you. And he reveals to him his universal form, his Virata Rupa and his Kala Rupa, his universal form. He shows Arjuna that this entire cosmic manifestation, this material universe, anything that he showed Arjuna at once, past, present and future. Sometimes we read history and we become baffled. That cyclone, that tsunami, wow, it's so terrible. This world, it's so difficult. When you read history, it's a chronicle of different conflicts and tragedies. Arjuna saw it all at once. The past, the present and the future at one moment. Imagine how awesome it was. Using that word very purposefully. How awe-inspiring. Arjuna was overwhelmed. He saw everything that exists in the material nature. He saw it in one place at one time. Know that all opulent and beautiful things, Arjuna, spring from but a spark of my splendor. Arjuna actually became terrified. He became terror-struck. We use that word, terror, terrorism, terrorist. Arjuna saw the terror that is the material nature and became terrorized. He became overwhelmed with awe. He started to offer his prostrations to Krishna, begging forgiveness. Krishna, sometimes I joke with you, sometimes I sat in the same bed as you, sometimes I thought of you as my junior because I'm a Kuru and you're just a Yadu. The Yadus are always subservient to the Kurus, the emperors. But now I understand my mistakes, accept my obeisances from the front, from the side, from behind. Krishna, forgive me. Don't think that I just made a divergence here, coming from that, not the body to now the universal form. I'm purposefully going here because Prabhupada makes some very interesting statements in his commentary. Prahlad Maharaj speaks of 6 transformations of the body, and he says we're not that. The soul is transcendent to that. Prabhupada, in his purport, he says there are 2 types of soul. There is the individual soul and the supreme soul, Paramatma. Krishna says in the Gita, Sarvasya chaham hidi shani vishto matasmitir jnanam apohanam cha. I'm in the heart of all living beings. So there's 2 souls. Chandogya Upanishad talks of the 2 birds in the tree. There are 2 souls. Why is Prabhupada introducing this? Prahlad Maharaj speaks about the soul and the body, but not that body. Prabhupada then says there are 2 types of souls. Just let me read this little section here. I'll read it here and then I'll read it near to the end of this purport because he introduces the idea. There are 2 kinds of soul: the super soul, the supreme soul, and the individual soul, the living entity. As various bodily changes take place in the individual soul, different millenniums of creation take place in the supreme soul. I'll now go to the end of the purport, where Prabhupada reintroduces this idea. Lord Vishnu is the chief living being, whereas the individual living entities are parts of Lord Vishnu. All the various grades of bodies, from the gigantic universal body to the small body of an ant, are perishable. So, Prahlad Maharaj speaks of the soul and the body, which has 6 transformations. Prabhupada introduces the idea, well, actually there are 2 souls, 2 types of soul. There is one eternal supreme soul from whom all others come. And there are the many individual souls. So these are the two types. And then he says, well, he suggests, there are two types of bodies. There are these small individual bodies that you and I have, and then there's this big universal body. We have individual material bodies. The Supreme Lord has this universal material body. It's called the Virat Rupa. Isn't that interesting? So we have our little body, and then there's Krishna's body. The trees, the plants, the mountains. Of immovable objects I am the Himalayas, of bodies of water I am the ocean, of secrets I am. Very good. Silence. That is all Krishna's body. It is his material form, the universal form. So we are small souls, thinking we're independent of Krishna, but we're inhabiting his own body. We depend entirely on his body. That is the material world. That is his universal form. And in fact, our bodies are part of that universal form. If you were to see what Arjuna saw, all of material creation, past, present, and future, all at once, he saw millions and millions of faces and fiery eyes and mouths and noses and ears. He saw all of this. If you were to see what he saw, and you look very carefully, then you would see, oh, there's Raja Prem. There's Ghanshyam. There's me. We're all part of that universal form. We're part of that universal form of the Lord. And we are tiny, tiny, small, puny part. We've had so many different bodies. You would see them all there. That was my fish body, that was my frog body. It's all there in the universal form. That's Krishna's body. So we depend entirely upon Krishna. That these bodies, from the small, tiny, individual body to the universal body of the Lord, they undergo these transformations. We undergo these transformations in the course of a short lifetime, 70, 80, 90, 100 years. The universal body undergoes these transformations. What is Prabhupada's words? Over the millenniums. As various bodily changes take place in the individual soul, the different millenniums of creation take place in the Supreme Soul. So, Krishna, Paramatma, specifically Kiradakashayi Vishnu, he is the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul, preserving the material body, preserving the material nature. When Brahma, the secondary creator, started to put together, do his work of putting together the material nature, it was just falling apart. There's water, it doesn't exist, it vaporizes it. There is mountains, a planet, it just falls apart. Nothing held together, no combining of the atoms. And he's like, well, how am I going to do this work of creation? It's not working. Nothing holds together. Sometimes you might want to bake a cake or some cookies and it just just flops. That's what was happening to him. He has the recipe. Combine some earth, some fire, some water, different combinations. That's, you make a human body over there, make a frog body there, different combinations. He's trying to do his job and it's just, it flops. And so he and the Devas, they pray to Vishnu, please help us. Please. And what does he do? All right. He expands into all of those elements and gives them their potency. Why is water tasty and cooling and refreshing? Krishna's potency is there. He has expanded into the fire to make it heat and hot and luminous. He expanded into all of the elements and gave them their potency. He is present within every atom, between every atom as Paramatma. These different expressions of Paramatma, they are all expansions of Kiradakashaya Vishnu. Hence, whenever there is some trouble in the world, the Devas, they have the address. What do? First they go to Brahma. Brahma says, this one's too big for me. We have to go to Vishnu. Okay, what's the address? Take out the address book. Smeta Dweep. Milk Ocean. Right? The White Island on the Milk Ocean, they head there, chanting the Purusha Shukta and other prayers of procreation. And he gives some response, either directly or indirectly via some telecommunication with Brahma. Brahma meditates and he receives a message in his heart. Brahma Hridaya Grantin. He receives a communication within his heart that he then further communicates to the Devas. He's going to appear on earth. He's going to resolve this issue. Don't worry. This is what we're supposed to do in order to prepare. Take birth in the families of the Yadus and the Vrishnis and so on. Depends on the situation. A different communication is given. But they go to Svetadri because that is the abode of Kiradakashaya Vishnu, or the Super Soul, the maintainer of the universe, the soul of this universal body. Okay, we're coming to time, a quick wrap up. So we individual souls, we should not identify with our bodies, but we have them. As long as we're conditioned souls, we have these bodies, so we engage the bodies in Krishna's service. We try to purify consciousness that we can be free of this body and return to Krishna. But we don't just engage these bodies, we have attachments to things, but we should know actually these things, they are all Krishna's. That's Krishna's body. And so our body as well is ultimately Krishna's body. So we try to engage our body and all the things of this world in Krishna's service. We should never think of them as separate from Krishna or independent of Krishna. That is Mayavad, in fact. Everything is an illusion. Or that is materialism. Everything is matter. No, everything is Krishna. It's Krishna's body, his universal form. We respect it, that great immovable object, the Himalayas. We respect that great body of water, the ocean, and the trees and the rivers and so on. They are Krishnas. We live in this world as Krishnas. And we take that which is Krishna's and we use it in his service. Okay, unfortunately, I'm over time. I'm sure we could have lots of fun with questions, but we'll conclude there. Thank you all very much. Grantada Srimad Bhagwatam ki jai, Samadhi Bhakta Vrindi ki jai, Gaura Premanand.